Right now, I would like to introduce Detective Chad Howard. This amazing man was assigned to my case, and he was involved in this process way more than he had to. I can only give good reports on his diligent, supportive, uh, and just consistent attitude. Um, he was there, very insightful, was able to answer all the questions that I had, and if he couldn't, he pointed me in the right direction. Um, and then since then, I've actually spoken on a panel with Mr. Howard, and he just has a lot of knowledge. So in a little bit, I'm going to ask you a few questions. But yeah, Mr. Howard was very supportive of me and my family all throughout the case, and even afterwards, in terms of retrieving my personal items back, and just staying in contact with me. So I appreciate you for that. So could you introduce yourself? Just tell us a little bit about yourself. How long you've been working in this field.
All right, not a problem. I'm Detective Chad Howard. I've been working on the Metropolitan Police Department now for about 20 years. I've been assigned to the U.S. Attorney's Office, to our narcotics office, or one of our narcotics offices, until now at the 6th District handling all violent crimes. And that's what brought me into contact with your case. I'll start by saying it was a privilege and it was an honor and a privilege from working on your case. Your case might have been the one case that I took to heart. I've dealt with everything from homicides to, unfortunately, infant deaths or anything, but your case for some reason touched me more than anything else. I had not seen that type of violence domestically in a long time. And I told myself that I would not go home until I found out what happened, until I brought you some type of peace, because I thought you deserved that peace. So I didn't feel like you thought you would be safe until this was brought to a conclusion. So that's what I internalized that.
I appreciate that.
It's not a problem. It's not a problem. It was nothing more than common decency to keep in touch with you, to keep in touch with your mother, to keep in touch with your family, to make sure that you were okay. The least thing you needed to worry about was where your property was, with anything else other than getting better. That's all you needed to focus on. It was my job to make sure that the justice aspect of it was taken care of, so you had no more worries. And that's all mainly I was concerned with. The investigation went smoothly. There's a couple of bumps in the road, but we worked them out. And I think we brought it to a successful conclusion. We're to the point where I don't think you have to worry about that anymore.
Oh, man. That means so much to me, my family, and, just everyone around us. How often do you get cases like mine?
I have never gotten a case that involved that level of violence that did not end in a homicide. You were the most severely injured domestic violence complainant, as we call, but I'll call you a person outside of that I've ever dealt with in a 20-year career. It's not domestic violence, unfortunately, is a regular occurrence east of the river. There's a lot of stressors. There are a lot of outside influences and internal influences that bring on domestic violence east of the river. And that's really what I'm concerned with, because that's where I work. But to rise to that level of violence simply because it was decided that the relationship would end, as it should have ended. As a man, you're expected to rise to a level to be respected, to be the head of a relationship and or family. And if you're not carrying that load and it's decided that relationship should end, you should take it as a man. You should not revert to being a child and acting out in all types of violence that changes someone's life forever. That was not called for.
Right.
So that is that is how I was brought into it. I remember talking to you while you were on the scene. I was amazed that you could speak to me because of the injuries that you suffered. The injuries
Mhm.
that you suffered, I've only seen in the fatalities. I fully expected to notify your family that you were no longer with us. I
Oh
fully
yes.
expected to do that.
Yeah. Please tell us. Can you walk us through like how it was from the moment you was assigned my case, and then how you had to deal with my family,
Hmm.
and just more of that process?
I can. I received a call uh, for stabbing. I responded to the call. Once I was there, I was amazed to speak to people that were in the area. Um, that not I shouldn't say amazed, but it is not normal that we get cooperation on the level that we did. It worked in your favor from the very beginning. People were instrumental in telling us which way they saw him flee, which way the method of transportation, what he had on and what he looked like, willingly telling us.
Mm. Mm.
In other situations, that is not the norm. And then I
Mm.
remember briefly speaking to you on the scene as you sat in the driver's seat of that vehicle, unable to move anything else other than your face. Um, I I totally thought I was taking a dying declaration,
Mm.
um, and
Wow.
I was fully expecting to be working this case from the homicide aspect of it. I was glad that you survived your injuries. I was glad that I went to the hospital with you to talk to you while you were at the hospital, and you gave me the information that I needed to bring this case to a successful closure.
Mhm.
I I do remember one thing that was different than any other case that I worked outside of the violence. I remember myself taking pictures of you as you laid on the gurney in the emergency room.
Mm.
Something told me that I would need these pictures in the future. Once we came in contact with your assailant, the person that assaulted you, um, I knew he would lie to me. I knew he would say he wasn't there. I knew he would say he had nothing to do with it. I knew
Mhm.
he would, you know, not place himself there. So what I did do was once I let him tell his story. Once I brought him back to the office, I let him tell his story. But what I did was I had your pictures on my personal cell phone, and I left your pictures on my phone so that he could see it when I put it on the desk, and then I left the interview room. And
Mm.
I wanted those pictures to sink into him because I knew it would touch him in a certain way. I knew it would get to him that I would get some type of truth out of him. Um, and then when I came back, I saw the look on his face, and he was staring at my phone. And the first thing I asked him, I said, what would you do if somebody did that to your baby? I said, that's your baby. You know, that's your lady, right? And he was like, yeah. I said, well, who did this to your baby? Who hurt your baby like this? Who would do this to her? And he
Mm.
started crying. He started crying, and I knew right then that this case was gonna end right there. And about 5 minutes later, it ended with a confession and what was considered an explanation, which truly was not an explanation. Um, it was a plea for leniency that I did not hear, um, but I did accept the confession.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah, that's so powerful. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that is so powerful, and to hear these details, for the first time, from your personal experience is very
Mm-hmm.
touching for me. Can you tell us what what my attacker's explanation was for
Um,
doing what he
his
did?
his explanation was that he felt that it was not right for you to end the relationship. That he felt like you owed him more than to
Mm.
break it off with him. That
Wow.
he did not deserve to be left. And the one question I asked him, well, then what does she deserve? What does she deserve? I said, does she deserve this? If you can tell me that she deserved this, then I'll leave this interview room right now. And he said, no, she didn't deserve this. And I asked him, why did you do it? If you're giving me your explanation as to why something like this happened, but then on the very next sentence you say she didn't deserve it, then you have no explanation. You have no reason. The simple truth is that you lost control. You were being less of a man. She brought you into her life. She turned you on to new things that you were not prepared to accept. You could not see your life past her because you knew that your life as it was not enough for you. And once you brought someone into your life that gave you another outlet, you brought your self-worth into her. So if her worth was not your worth, she didn't mean anything, and nor did you. So you did not mind in attempting to take her life because you didn't even see the more value in hers without you being with her. That's domestic violence. At its core, that is domestic violence. When you stop seeing value in the person that you're supposed to love because you intertwine your worth with theirs. And you don't see what you're doing. You become so blinded by rage. You become so blinded by selfishness that it turns to violence.
No matter how much I talk about this, talk about my story, it hurts. It's painful to hear. It's painful to just know the harsh reality, to be reminded, already reminded constantly, but to hear from others' perspectives.
And I truly don't say this to rehash anything or for you to relive it. I truly don't. And if I did, I sincerely apologize.
No, you're good. You're good. So I know that you was saying earlier that there are a lot of stressors and things east of the river. Can you explain to the audience, the people who may not know what east of the river is in terms of DC?
Okay. East of the river is anything east of the Anacostia River. Literally, when you cross the bridge from Benning Road to any points east that leads you to the 6th and 7th District, Ward 8, and I believe some of Ward 7. It is some of the most underserved, underprivileged areas of the city, the most. The place in the city where services are needed the most, but are not exactly delved out in the most fair manner. There are a lot of stresses. It's a lot of violence. It's a lot of misunderstanding, even between the residents that live there. There's not a lot of accountability. There's a lot of accepting generational ills and generational biases that lead to violence. It's institutional thinking. It's something that we can work our way out of, but we need a lot of help. But we first have to start with helping ourselves, because without ourselves, we can't place this on the police department. We can't place it on the district government. We can't place it on the federal government. We have to, as a people, from that part of the city, because we have to be a people from that part of the city, help ourselves understanding what the triggers are.
Yes.
There are a lot of triggers. From my experience, it goes from everything to unemployment, to lack of housing, definitely lack of schooling, role models, parenting, and in some sense, a lot of that is generational, because we failed in a lot of ways. That we won't, we've had a lot of help. It's not just us, but it can change, but we have to care enough to change it individually. Individually, if one person, everybody, takes the attitude, well, this is what I can do to make these surroundings better. This is what I can do to even make anything better with anyone else. You have to care. It has to start with caring. But we've become so jaded on that side of the city too. We've gotten used to violence. We've gotten used to neglect. We've gotten used to, a lot of things that are terrible in other societies. We've become accustomed to it, and we have to break that custom. We have to. If not, we will continue to see the same that we've become accustomed to.
Wow, all of this is so deep. Yeah, for those just tuning in, this is our first test show of the Silence Kills podcast. On the line, we have guests Miss Marshalina Davis and Mr. Chad Howard telling us, about their experiences dealing with domestic abuse and their, relationship with me. As Detective Howard was saying, he works in east of the river. I also live in east of the river. I live in Ward 7, one of the most, like he was saying, everything they was saying, underserved, underprivileged. A lot of these things adds on and compiles on the stressors and triggers and the trauma. And so that's one of the main reasons why I'm so passionate about starting Silence Kills, because I feel like I really want to provide a free outlet, a free creative outlet that I feel like our people can really benefit from. We are super talented, and a lot of us have stories to tell. And I feel like it's really time to heal. It's time to heal for so many people. It's not time to be silent anymore. Our silence is literally killing us. Our silence is killing us. It is now time to heal. Please, my PayPal is paypal.me/Shehariah. We're raising money to start the nonprofit Silence Kills in D.C. It comes with a lot of fees and things like that. We also have a GoFundMe called Silence Kills Startup Fund. Also check us out on there. We have an IG and Twitter, Silence Kills 0, the number 0. I have our upcoming events, flyers, and pictures from our events up there. And that's a way for you to, stay in tune. So now I want to go more into the panel discussion. Ms. M, I know you've probably been, itching to speak. M, do you have any comments? Want to piggyback on anything that he said? Because I know you also work in East of the River at the Boys and Girls Club. So I know you work with a lot of teens and youth, that have been going through this or who have parents that have went through the same thing.
Yes. So from the perspective that he spoke, I only know about the East of the River coming. So I was very new and fresh to D.C., never been here. And I can definitely say environment, number one, has a lot to do with, our mental capacity, our physical capacity, how we interact with each other, but most important, how we interact with ourselves. So just something as small as saying, oh, my gosh, I'm so stupid, to ourselves. We're putting that negative energy within ourselves, and then, it's flushed out onto other people. By chance, did you all talk about how Detective and myself and you all connected?
Oh, no. Would you like to?
I would love to. So,
okay.
One day, working late as usual at the Boys and Girls Club, I get this beat on the back door. So I go to the door, and I'm like, oh, good Lord. Beautiful brother standing there, awesome eyes, and he's asking about one of my teens, one of the boys. And so I'm like, whoa, hold up, what you want? So he explained to me about what happened, and so I run to the sign-in sheets, and I'm like, no, they've been here. Look, I have the sign-in sheets from today, from yesterday. I don't know, they've been here. And so we talked about the young man that he was going to have to arrest. And I asked him if he would be so kind to not arrest him at home and wait until he comes to the club. And so I could talk with him first, and then we could do it in a more organic and positive way, even though it wasn't a positive situation. And so he agreed. And then I think I stalked him for his phone number. And I asked him if I could please have his number so I could just text him or call him so I can know step by step what's going on with the young man. And he agreed. He allowed me to. And then so I even stalked him a little more. He said he'd be down at the courthouse. He said he'll call me to let me know when I should come. But I was already there in the parking lot waiting. And so when he finally called me, I told him I was there. But, the case, I believe, was dismissed, which is a great thing. So it wasn't until 8 years later Now, I've kept in contact with him via social media here and there. But 8 years later, I come here, and you and I are hanging out, what is it, Easter Market? And we're chit-chatting and we're talking, and then I'm like, oh, I'm going to go live on Facebook. And I do. And then I don't look at Facebook for the rest of the day or for some time, and then I notice either he asked you, how do you know me?
Yeah.
And, yeah, so he didn't know that we knew each other, and I had no idea he was the detective that was on your case. And as soon as I saw those messages, I just burst into tears, and I called him, and I think I was in mid-conversation when he answered the phone. And it just makes me feel even more better to know that even though I wasn't here, and in a way, I did leave you all. I did, to deal with my own life. But he was there. So I had a prior experience with him where he really didn't know me from a can of paint. He took care of the young man. And he cared about my feelings and how I cared about you all. And so it's just more confirmation to come back to DC and do the work, because now I have an awesome partner not in crime, but partner to fix whatever issues that we may have together. So now our group is bigger, and we're more skilled. We're educated on different levels, and that's powerful. And as you and I discussed the other day about what happens when you open your mouth and you speak out. We know what happens to black men, in our communities, to speak out, to stand up, to speak and walk from their God self. And I am fully aware of that, and I understand what the consequences or repercussions may be for me to speak out and the work that is to come. And I fear nothing, no human being at all, but I do fear that if I don't do the work, that my gifts and talents will be taken away from me. So it's important that I do this work, but it's just great because now you all aren't teams anymore. Like, we really can soldier up, and that's what's important.
It's amazing the way things work. It really is. I want you all to we all can touch on, what does the cycle of domestic violence look like? Going based on your own experiences or what you've seen in cases. Mr. Howard, you want to start?
If we're speaking from a law enforcement aspect of it, there's a lot of different cycles, a lot of different steps to domestic violence. Of course, there's the beginning. I don't know them verbatim, but I'll go to what I've seen. There's the beginning. The beginning is either, it could be male or female. It could be triggered by a word, a comment, a look, anything, a smell. It could trigger, anything can trigger the cycle. It could be economic. It could be physical. It could be emotional. Anything that would turn it into any situation where you take advantage of another person in any one of those ways, emotionally, physically, economically, anyway, sexually, anyway. There comes a point where it becomes physical or verbal, and then there's a thing that we call the honeymoon phase, where it's time to make up, and the assailant will often say anything. I mean, domestic violence is very intimate, because if I'm an abuser, I know how to hurt you, but I also know how to make you believe me. I know what to say to get you back on my side.
Yeah, manipulation.
Right? I will manipulate you like you are pieces of chess pieces on the board. Because I know what to say, I know what to do, I know what bill to pay, I know what not to say, I know what to say, I know where to take you. I know how to manipulate you to get you back where I want you. And then once I get you back where I want you, then I control you. It's all about control. And then once I control you again, if you do anything that steps outside of my control, then it could be anything. But once you step, or I feel, it might not even be anything that you do, or I feel you step outside of my control, then the cycle starts all over again. and that's in a nutshell, that is domestic violence.
Thank you. Miss M, do you want to talk about your experience with the cycle of domestic violence?
I've been not a victim because I fight. I fight too. So I guess for me, I minimize it by saying, "Yo, like I'm not being beat down, or I'm not being this. I fight back." So it's not like I'm just, and yeah, that's part of it. But the other part of it is the internal emotional side. And I think I was speaking with one of the other young ladies or yourself, and it's like I have been broken in so many pieces, or allowed myself to be broken in so many different pieces as the creators have mended me back together. I am like a mosaic, and nothing that anyone could say or do to me at this point in my life can break me, ever. I hurt, yeah, it hurts. It hurts to know that you can love someone at their core, love the God in them, even when they don't know that the God is in them and that they are just a beautiful being. It hurts when in a relationship you actually lose the friend. And so I always just say that, man, it hurts because I'm losing my best friend. But in actuality, I didn't have a best friend to begin with. And that's the hurtful part, because we know the spirit of discernment is real. And we know. I knew my mother. When I say my mother is never wrong about the character of a person in my life, never has she been wrong. I don't know if it's that I feel that I can fix them, or how they say you kill people with kindness. Maybe they haven't been loved that way before. So you just pour it all on them and you love them. And, a lot of people would say, you give too much. You give all of it at the beginning. Well, why not? Because what if I don't have tomorrow to give?
Right.
You never know. And where the strength comes in at is when you know that the individuals that you were with were hurting. And regardless of how they choose to deal with it, you happen to be the closest thing to them that they can, control and hurt and not hurt and hug. And what's her name? Rihanna has a song, Love on the Brain. And she says that, but I whatever she say, I tried to love you pretty hard, whatever, you throw me up against throw me up against the wall, whatever it is. So it's like you love me, you with me, and then once you get me in, or another song, issues. I got issues, you got them too. Give me yours, and and it's like, yeah, we got issues. The idea is for you not to take that shit out on me.
Right.
The idea is for me not to be a welcome mat for you to just walk on. The idea is for you to, if it happened once, it never to happen again. But that's the key. Do you walk when it happens the first time? You're in shock. Can't believe it. But the unfortunate thing is, if you don't walk the first time, it will happen again and again in different forms. It may not happen the same way that it happened the first time initially, but it's going to happen. And so then that puts us, it puts you in that space, like you said, it's a smell. For me, it's music. It's a song. I can't even look at a digital clock with red numbers anymore, because it takes me back to laying in that bed. It takes me back to being powerless for that time frame. So for me, if I don't do the work and I'm not constantly giving of myself to someone else, then then it triggers when I'm alone. When I'm by myself and I'm thinking, it triggers the fact that, wow, I wonder if they're thinking about me. I wonder if they think what they did to me really hurt. And I'm pretty sure it goes through your mind, especially when you have loved someone and they do those things to you, or you allow that to happen and or not. So, it's something that you'll never get over. But you can balance, and the power and the strength from that is giving it to others, And when you hear it and see, because we know, once you already go through it, you can hear maybe the first 5 minutes of a conversation that you're having with a girlfriend or a friend, and you know, and they know because they're telling you. And that's the first part. They're starting to communicate about it, even if it's just you. And it's our duty to continue to share our stories.
Mhm. Absolutely correct. Like Detective Howard was touching on, the cycle goes from uh, honeymoon, tension building, and like the explosion phases. A lot of times it starts with verbal abuse, and then emotional abuse, and then it escalates to physical abuse, actually damaging your personal items, and just more and more damage to the point where a lot of people in these situations want to leave, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's not as easy to leave. These people that are still in these situations, they take back their partners after they apologize to them profusely, especially after that first time of just being in shock. So you feel like, oh, you may attribute to this person's, maybe they have an anger problem or something of the sort, but not necessarily think or associate it with abuse, which can be deadly. I think a lot of people going in don't know the full extent of how deadly domestic abuse situations can get unless they're educated on the cycle or just talked to about what that means, just what it means. How can we do better as individuals to help survivors? I know we probably have had friends, just in our normal lives who are going through these situations. What are some common themes that you see in these situations, or what are ways that you have tried to help or got people out of these situations? What advice would you give to people in these situations? Just any comments? Mr. Howard, we can start with you.
First off, is you have to identify two people. You have to identify the abused first, because they often aren't going to speak up for themselves. Then you have to identify the abusers. How many times are you about to go out, say, ladies say we're about to go out with our girlfriends, and her dude might be a little crazy, might be a little, don't want her to go out as much because he has his own internal demons and thinks if she goes out she'll find somebody else. But that's going a little bit deep. But we'll say she's about to go out, then all of a sudden you get a call, oh, I'm not going, I'm just going to stay in the house. And the first thing you think about was, why not? But then the next day you see her, she's got a bruise that she didn't have on her before that. You have to notice, you have to pay attention to the people around, because abuse shows itself in many ways. If you have a friend that was caregoing, loving life one minute, then the next day she's depressed, there's a reason for that. If you have somebody that was always on top of their game, bills paid, kids taken care of, the next time you see her cell phone cut off and you see her kids run around with, less than what they normally would have on, there's something going on. You have to notice, you have to recognize the signs of abuse, because it's often not going to be right in front of you. There's going to be subtle signs. But once you notice the abuser, you start seeing the signs of abuse, of people losing confidence in themselves, people losing family, people starting to wrap themselves all into one person and leaving their life behind them. You have to pay attention to those things. Then you have to recognize what's the reason for that. Mm-hmm. If you start seeing someone being dominated, and that's all it is, someone's life being controlled, I'm not saying put your nose in anybody else's business, but I'm going to say save your friend. I'm going to say save your family, because everybody knows what it looks like. Just have to be courageous enough to say, look, this doesn't look right. What's going on? I'm going to come over to the house and pick you up. We're going to hang out for a minute. We're going to be back early, Just come out, and then once you get them away from that element where they're afraid, and you make them feel comfortable, you'll be surprised at what you hear. But then once you hear it, you have to act on it. Don't let them put themselves back in that situation, because at that point they're not strong enough to break that chain. They're not strong enough to pull away from it, so you got to help. You got to get somebody some help.
Thank you. Miss M, when you answer, can you also talk about what you think people could have done better to support you, or what could have people?
Oh, my God.
When you. Just when you face domestic abuse, period.
So look, let me say this to you, is to know that one of your, I call y'all my babies, but y'all grown, is going through that experience. And I learned those things working with the youth that I worked with. And what was infuriating to me, because working at the Boys and Girls Club is a reporting agency, I reported the shit. And you know what was so upsetting to me? The situation happened in Maryland, but the child goes to the club in D.C. There is a lack. There's a problem there, because I don't care what district it's in. I don't care what ward it's in. I don't care where it's at. You hear and obey, and you move out. And that's why I stayed late at the Boys and Girls Club. That's why Detective Howard could knock and beat on the door late at night, because sometimes some of you didn't go home. And you start to see the pattern of, why are they staying here so late? You know? It's hard it can be hard, because I love y'all, and I know it's right, but then I know it's a process that you have to go through. And, you know, we're still dealing with situations like that. And so if I were in a situation, and I knew, which I know, I have to say something. So even being on this podcast right now, I heard some things. There was some things that happened when I was here 8 years ago, and the shit's still happening. Like, I'm at the point where I actually want to go knock on this person's door and rip them out of the damn house because they're still hurting my babies. And so the next best thing to do is to turn it over to my I'm gonna call him my detective, because he be working on cases for us. But my detective Howard, because it has to end. It has to end. And the way we start that is in our own little group right here.
Right.
And out of those 10 girls, that's now young women, we have all been through it. And it takes, to go back out into the community, maybe knock on the doors of the women owner-operators of McDonald's that funded my sisters, myself, that brought us so close together, and not so much surface, but maybe they can tap back into, the McDonald's right there by Howard. Ashley, what's her last name? Wilburn. Yeah, maybe reaching out and going to the different McDonald's and having sessions with people so they can feel comfortable to come and talk. But not just talk, move out and get things done. We set up task force within the community, and don't be afraid that if you hear somebody down the street getting their ass beat, you do something. That's what it takes. And if we don't do anything, then that blood is on our hands, even though people seem not to care. But it's our duty. So even though, like you asked the question, and it's so funny, it's another confirmation that I have the duty to report. And I know that the person that's having the issue already know Miss M, and already know that I'm not playing no games, and already know that it's going to come to an end, because I've been away 8 years, and I heard about it 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago, and the shit is still going on. So before Detective Howard is picking me up and taking me down to the jailhouse because I didn't murder somebody, for continuing to get away with this type of control and continuing to hurt and damage a beautiful soul, beautiful spirit, the work starts now. So, yeah, we cannot be silent anymore. It's just not possible, because our babies are looking at us. Children are looking at us. And even though some of our elders aren't around to do the work that needs to be done, it's my generation. It's our generation, Detective Howard and I, and hopefully others, to stand up and really, do something that's going to make a difference and an impact in someone's life on a positive note.
Mm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Those are very good ways that we are starting to make that change, that you both are starting to make that change, even by just being on this podcast with me. Like right now, we're planting seeds, we're speaking things into existence, and we're actually acting. We're not just talking about these things. And so I'm honored to be on the line with you two. Who are y'all both are willing to go to the extreme measures to make a difference and educate. Miss M, how could someone have supported you, like you personally?
During my, you know what? I guess I was supported in some way, but then I felt that I wasn't. And I would hear, oh, you know what? I didn't get involved in it because I figured she would go right back. And, I love my family. I love my brothers. But these are things that my brothers have said to me. And so this is why it had been really very difficult to talk about, because it intertwines my mother. And my mother and I just had a conversation about a month ago, and she was like, you should talk to your older brother. And I was like, why? I have talked to him. I forgave him. But it bothers her that we aren't as close. And I get it because she's a mother. She has 4 children. I understand. But I said, but Mommy, there was a time I was in a bathtub with a foam cord wrapped around my neck, choking from my own brother. We pull knives and hit, like I've taken some fucking hits from men. My own son's father. Like I have a blemish under my eye. People may not really see, but yeah, I look at that shit every day. I don't wear makeup because I want to see it. Or the one thing that I know, I would always get choked because they wanted me to shut up and silence me to the point where I just learned to be quiet and write about it. And then I just was fighting all the time. Not like I just want to fight you, but, I wouldn't hesitate. If it even looked like one time my brother, we got in an argument, and not the one that I fought all the time, but the other one. And he walked up on me, and I automatically went into stance. Automatically. And so for me, my personal space is important, very important. And we may be cool, but it may be something that triggers me, and I will go straight into warrior mode. But that's protection, When a man knows that you don't have anyone to protect you, especially when you have brothers, and that they're not those rowdy brother sisters gonna come and And then also, some men are like, well, I'm not going to, you're going to go back to him anyway. And I heard that, and I was like, damn, what if I didn't? What if I just needed my brother to beat his ass? Enough for me to say, you know what, shit, I don't need that. I got my brother. My brother's got my back. But when the man that's supposed to love and protect you that you're with does those things, you're split because you're like, fuck, do you love me? You're supposed to love and protect me as I love and protect you in my own way. So then you kind of get, I wouldn't say numb because for some reason, I'm super sensitive and emotional still. So I can't say, I don't want to be in a relationship. No, I'm going to deal with nobody. I'm just not going to do it because that's not who I am. And I'm going to give 360 degrees of my love again to someone. And I hope that when that happens, that they understand and know how to balance and what to do with that. But for me, the moment I feel a trigger or I see any characteristics, I'm out. And so at this point, I'm truly a flight risk queen. There is no doubt about it. And I've embraced it. And I appreciate the fact that, you see what they say, fight or flight. I am tired of fighting black men. I love black men. even
Mhm.
in their shit. But
Right.
I can't be that anymore. But I can love them from a distance.
Same here.
And by doing that, it helps balance me to be able to give to you all and be happy and, I'm exciting and all those things, because that's how I feel when I'm doing work. When I'm not and I have time to think about my life and think about my journey and my experiences, yeah, it comes back up. I fell into depression, yeah. Everything that Detective Howard talked about, I fell into that. That was my 5 years in D.C., in Oakland.
Mhm.
No one would have known me, really. Not just those that know me now, but, you get out of it. It's a cycle, I guess. And this is like the end of that, to continue to speak out and empower other people. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So one of the points that I want to emphasize is taking a first step or taking steps or even just starting to think about a plan when you see these signs of abusive behavior. Because as we talk about the cycle, it does get worse and it escalates. It begins with talking and yelling, and then it goes to manipulation, isolation, and then the explosion, the tension phase, and it's deadly. It's very lethal. I think you all gave some good points as to how we can do better just to make a change, and we are planting seeds right now, and as we speak, and planting seeds with the things that we know we will start to do. Um, right now, Detective Howard, could you give us some resources, some local resources for intimate partner violence?
Yes, it's a lot of resources that can be used to prevent and to assist in healing after any unfortunate events happen. OCAP, it's one of them. It's a resource the police department uses to assist victims of domestic violence with housing, shelter, housing and shelter, same thing, but any type of counseling, any type of assistance that might be needed after a traumatic event or an event that is not the norm or any event that is criminal. And that doesn't necessarily mean violence. It just means there might be a threat, but it still could be rooted in domestic violence. There are several outreach centers that they have around the city for women to go to, and I keep saying women because that is the predominant victim of domestic violence, but it can also be men. But there are also shelters for men. There are programs for men. There are programs for children. Down at our Safe Shores office, if there's ever our Youth and Family Division has outreach programs for children, persons in need of supervision. It's called the PENS project. That can be utilized if anyone needs help. A lot of people don't take advantage of these resources, but they're still there if you need them. Things like that.
Okay. Thank you. And do you know we also have like the National Domestic Violence Hotline and things like
Absolutely.
that. So again, this is the Silent Skills podcast test show. This will be the first of many. On the line, we have Miss Marsha Lorena Davis and Mr. Chad Howard, just discussing what abuse looks like, what it feels like, the effects of it, some of the causes of it, and he just gave us some resources. So the name of this podcast, Silence Kills, is the nonprofit organization that I'm trying to start to encourage people to speak out using art. Our silence is literally killing us. Please check out our Silence Kills Startup Fund on GoFundMe.com. Our Silence Kills Startup Fund. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Silence Kills and then the number 0. We have upcoming events. I post our pictures there. We have the link and all that up there. And I think we received a lot of helpful information today. I want to thank you all sincerely for taking the time out of your day to make it here, to make it there together, to be able to interview with me. I'm super grateful. This was very impactful for me. A lot of the things that I heard you all express, I'm just very humbled to know you all. And I appreciate you supporting the movement, the Silent Skills movement, to answer these questions and express your real life personal experiences is nothing more valuable.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me. It was, like I said, it was an honor to work on your case, and it's a true blessing to know you. Thank you.
Mm. Okay, thank you so much, and thank you all for tuning in. Silence Kills Podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.